And that means that on the other side of the road, you should be able to see, there it is at 11 o'clock, you can see a hill with a watchtower and a flag. Can you see that?
Yeah.
You can't really see the flag very well right now, but that is a Jordanian flag. That hill is in Jordan. It's beyond our border in the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, and there's a Jordanian soldier in there. That means that just in front of that hill, you can just about see a fence at the end of the wheat field, and the Jordan River flows just beyond that fence. The Jordan River from this point on is the physical border between Israel and the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, and if you look sharp left in a moment, you'll just about see a little bit of a glimpse of the river, just for a brief moment. Notice the terrain, by the way, is already changing. There's a Jordan River if you look sharp left. Now the field beyond the river here of straight trees, which is in Jordan, is cultivated by Israeli farmers. That's a very delicate situation that developed because of what happened in the Six-Day War. Israel actually in the Six-Day War took from the Jordanians a large part of the Jordan Valley that they had occupied since 1948 when Israel became a state, and they held on to it. They just annexed all those territories that were on the west side of the Jordan River to Jordan. They just considered them Jordanian territory on the east bank of the River Jordan, because until then their state from 1922 was on the west banks of the east River Jordan. But then they came over in the War of Independence, supposedly to help the Palestinians fight the newly formed state of Israel. But once the war ended, they just stayed there, and then they annexed those territories. No one mentions it, but Jordan annexed Judea, Samaria, the Jordan Valley, East Jerusalem, and the old city of Jerusalem for 19 years. And then in the Six-Day War, Israel kicked them back to beyond the Jordan River, took all those areas back. That's, by the way, why those areas are called the West Bank. They're on the eastern side of Israel. It doesn't seem to make sense that they're called the West Bank, but they're called that because when the Jordanians annexed them, they considered them Jordanian areas on the west bank of the Jordan River. Now, right after the Six-Day War, the Jordanian king, at the time King Hussein, just abandoned his ill intentions towards Israel. He dropped it. He completely made a turnaround, didn't want to fight Israel anymore, didn't want trouble, and actually secretly became a friend of Israeli leadership. We were not privy to it at the time, but he was having countless clandestine friendly meetings, developing relationships with Israeli leaders, including Yitzhak Rabin, who later on became prime minister, Golda Meir, the only lady prime minister that we've had so far, and he just became secretly a friend of Israeli leaders. He actually warned the Israeli government day in and day out about the Yom Kippur War that happened in 1973, which took us so by surprise. It should not have taken us by surprise. He was on the phone to Golda Meir day in and day out and saying the Syrians and the Egyptians are planning to attack you. You need to take this seriously. And Golda Meir went to her army advisors, the military advisors, and to the intelligence forces of the army, and they said, yes, we see the movements, we see everything, but it's maneuvers, it's not going to turn into a war. And it did. It turned into the worst war that we had, where we came this close to being annihilated. Anyway, after we signed the peace treaty with the Palestinians, that peace treaty after which they started blowing themselves up in Israel, blowing themselves up in malls, buses, suicide bombers in restaurants, marketplaces. By the way, since we've signed the peace treaty with the Palestinians, we cannot just drive into a mall like we used to. At the entrance to the parking lot, the car goes through a security check. They open the glove compartment, they open the back seat, you have to open the baggage. If there's any baggage in there, they go through it. Once they clear the car can go into the parking lot and park, and then we are checked with a metal detector as we get into the mall. That's since we signed the peace process contract.